What's up, Denver? Chris Lopez here. And today's podcast, we have a special guest. Nicole Rueth with Fairway Mortgage has a powerful story. She's the #1 loan originator here in Colorado. She's an investor with over 20 doors. She has 3 adult children and didn't start her investing career until she was about 40 years old. So lots to unpack here and lots to go into. Nicole, I'm thrilled to have you here.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
So I noticed one of the things you put in your notes here is that you had a very special person, a very special realtor years ago kind of start the journey. And I'm not sure if that's the best place to start. If you want to rewind it more than that, I want to give you room to tell your story, but I want to make sure we talk about this realtor that kind of put you on this trajectory.
We can start there because then we could do like a pre-dawn and post-dawn.
All right.
Everybody has a person, right? If you want to tell your own story, everybody has a time, a person, an event that changes the trajectory of their lives. The question is whether or not they want to acknowledge that person and give them the gift of knowing that they did that. For me, it was Don Kramer, and he was a real estate agent. He was older when I met him. I met him at the John Fisher Breakfast Club back when that was a thing. I'm kind of dating myself. And it was before Meetup, and we didn't have Facebook, and it was the place where investors would come. And I wasn't an investor. I have to be really clear with that. Like, I was a lender looking for real estate agents. That was it. That was the end game. The end game was to walk into an event that other lenders were too afraid to walk into. Because I knew, and I don't say this in a conceited way at all, but I just knew I was smarter than the next guy. Like I could understand how lending programs work together. I could understand how deals were made. I came from a consulting background, and I thought, okay, so the normal lender's going to want the normal deal. I'm going to go after the abnormal deal to get in where I'm just going to defeat the competition. So I walked in trying to make a deal happen. And I sat next to a gentleman, and I'm starting to just talk about what his business looks like. Does he have a current lender? What does that scope look like? What does a room look like? Well, he came to the meeting looking for an investment opportunity. He came to the meeting looking for a buyer. He had a deal. I came to the meeting looking for a real estate agent. He won. We only did that one deal together. And I never worked with him again. And I never really worked with anybody else in that room, because I did find out that the John Fisher Investment Club, it was eccentric. They were moving a lot of land, car washes, storage units, the whole thing. It was a lot of fun to learn. But it didn't have a place really for a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac lender.
Yep.
So I worked, I got worked. I didn't end up winning that one, but I won a fourplex, which was a game changer. At the time, I didn't get it. At the time, I had one roof over my head that I had bought with my husband when I was 27 years old. So I grew up with a single mom who, she gigged it. She didn't have a corporate job. She had multiple jobs, and those jobs paid typically on commission. And so when she did well, we went to Disneyland. And when she didn't, we were at the church and on food stamps. So it was a very roller coaster upbringing, and it wasn't a bad upbringing. I mean, there was a lot of joy in that, but at the same time, I didn't understand real estate because we rented and we bounced, and that was just life. And you didn't evaluate it. You just lived it. And then when I got married, my husband and I bought a home. We had our first child, and then we had our second child, and then we had our third child. Holy smoke, that happened fast. We had 3 kids under 3. We had a roof over our head. We were both in corporate America. He was still doing it. I stopped working for a period of time, and then I reached out to a friend. I needed a job, and he happened to be a lender. It's as random as it was. And I ended up going to work from him, and it kind of built up from there. But all heading towards this one meeting that I had no idea was in my future, and I had no idea what it would impact. But all of a sudden, that conversation and that transaction turned into a higher purpose for my work that I had already been in at that time for 7 or 8 years. And now all of a sudden, that work was different. It had purpose.
Okay, I feel like you're about to pivot there. I got 2 questions here for you. What was actually the first one is, so you were not looking for an investment property when you went to the Fisher Breakfast Club, right?
Not at all.
So was it even on your radar? Had you and
Not
your
even
husband talked about buying a rental property? So how that connection happened? Because a lot of times, like, hey, if I have a deal or, someone has a deal to go out there and buy, if you're not looking for a rental property, you're usually not my best prospect. Like,
Right.
what was the change that got you saying, hey, we need to do this, and you're able to do it? Like, what was the events there?
So Don had a pocket listing, if you will, right? And there was a lot more of that then than now. And so he had this fourplex. It was an older woman who had passed. Her son was a pastor and he wanted nothing to do with the rental properties, and she had a handful. And so he was convinced that this was a property that was supposed to be mine because of this chance that I sat down next to him. And here I am, an intelligent woman trying to take charge of my career, and I needed to do this. And ultimately, I didn't want to, but I mean, it was one of those things where he's talking and I'm going, well, that's a different way of looking at real estate, or that's a different way to look at what I do on a daily basis. And it took time. It was like a 45-day close because it was a pocket listing. It wasn't even on the market. He didn't have to move it by a specific date. And so by the time it was all said and done, we met for coffee probably 3 or 4 or 5 times before we ever signed the contract. And he just kept talking about the vision. It wasn't about the transaction. It never was.
The vision of the property or the vision for your future investing career?
The vision of investing. The vision of investing, that this would be the beginning of changing my life. Now, he didn't use the word trajectory, but I use that a lot now, that it literally changed the trajectory, how you go from being raised by a single mom renting to having one roof over your head, which is what most Americans have if they even have the ability to own it.
Mm-hmm.
But then to say, well, what is this now? And I went all in. Like, we bought a fourplex in Arvada for $330,000. So we didn't just buy a single family home. We bought a fourplex, and now we have a little bit of a soap opera thing going on because then I'm trying to figure all this out. But I think it was the care. It was the wisdom. He was older. It was the care. It was the look forward as to what am I building? I have 3 babies at home. I'm doing this career. I'm driving them around between sports events and these meetups and the things that I'm doing. And all of a sudden, I think he just spoke in when I was ready to listen, but I wasn't looking.
No, that makes total sense. And like what you're talking there, what like Don did with you, like, he genuinely cared and really spent time to coach, for lack of better words, and kind of like point you in that bigger direction. Like, I know I do that in my business, do that in your business, like that genuine caring about people and be like, hey, I didn't want to go here. Let me give you some more direction. And sometimes they'll kick in the butt to help you out along the way. And it's just such a great way to like build a business, add value, and really make some amazing relationships.
Yes.
So it's so cool to hear that. The second question I want to hear before we go on this, like, the second half of the book is, what was your lending business like before? Because it sounded like that helped kind of pivot your lending business as well. Or is that an incorrect assumption on my part?
It definitely did. Now, It took years to have that unpack. But before that, it was your standard lender then. Like, it was different than it is today. But it was, dropping off goodies at real estate offices, trying to get in front of them, trying to do one-on-ones. You didn't really teach classes back then. You certainly didn't have Zoom or any of those where you could put yourself in front of a group. So then it was just about, and then of course, you belong to the Chamber of Commerce, you belong to the Association of Realtors, those sorts of things.
Yep.
I did 3 to 4 loans a month at that time. And every once in a while I'd bounce to 6, and that was a good month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so with that meeting, did that influence you doing more investing stuff as kind of like your personal focus went more towards rentals and building an investment portfolio?
So by the time it was all said and done, and we're probably talking 2 months between the time I met him and the time we closed.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time it was all said and done, it was exhausting. It was stressful. It was frustrating. I had to give up cash, 25% of 330, which today sounds different than it did then. It was a lot.
Now it's $330 a door for a fourplex.
It really is. And so to do that, it was stressful. But my husband and I grew. Like, we were talking a lot and we were thinking about our future more. We were so busy doing life, between getting married and having kids and moving from Texas to Colorado and then me leaving the job and we were so busy doing life.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't stop to talk about the future. What did it look like 10, 20, 30 years from now? What did we want our kids to have 10, 20, 30 years from now? So we started having these conversations. And by the time it was all done, I was like, holy crap, that was a lot of work. We got to do that again. And my husband was like, that was a lot. We don't want to do that again. Like, he was like done and I was ready. And we literally went under contract within a week and bought a single family home within 3 weeks. So, and that was a great rental. We picked that up for $117,000. We sold it for $400,000 at the beginning of COVID. So little did I know I should have held on to it for 2 more years, but that's beside the point. So those are the things where we just like the way we attack things, and we're blessed to still be married decades later. But here we are looking at this 2 different ways, and then it slowed down because now we had just spent 25% on a 330 property, 25% on 117.
A good chunk of money.
That was, yes, a big chunk of money for us doing the deals that I was doing at the time and living the lifestyle we were living at the time. And then we didn't buy anything for another 3 or 4 years. And at that time, I think I molded who I was becoming slowly. Not intentionally. I was slowly becoming the person that liked to talk about it, liked to open up the door, liked to be that Don Kramer for somebody else, but I didn't know how to encapsulate that. And it wasn't until we bought another fourplex in Colorado Springs, which I later found out was in an area called Heroin Alley. Like, I didn't know that existed, but you learn the hard way. And so we bought that fourplex and we got a property manager, and all of a sudden we went next level. Now we have a property manager. Now we have a property outside of our area. Now we're not answering the phones and doing the landscape. I had my kids mowing. We were cleaning out the gutters, doing all the things. So now all of a sudden we're a little bit more, I don't want to say intelligent about it because that's the wrong word. We were more intentional in the way we attacked this third property.
Was that just like a pure time issue? Just like busy professional, 3 young kids, just like, hey, bandwidth, what can we cut out? And property management is usually like a very low-hanging fruit. Was that the reason?
It was, no, I think with that, now at that point, we had 9 doors, right? So we had the 2 fourplexes and the single family. Now everybody talks about wanting 10 doors. Like, that's a thing. I don't know why that's a thing, but that's a thing that we always hear. It's like, and I was like, now we have 9 and we have our primary. I said, we're investors. Like, all of a sudden it just became real. And we started talking about it with more intentionality. Now I wanted to teach on it. Now I wanted to start to help other people. Like, okay, I did that. Like, look at the thing that we just did. We just did that. How can I help other people? Because I didn't have the knowledge. We certainly didn't have the financial wherewithal to be doing this. We probably overextended ourselves, but we believed in the idea of the future. And so we wanted to pull that in. And then when I found that we found success, maybe by accident, I wanted to get rid of the accident part of it. And I wanted to create more intention around the progress.
Getting the intention, was that something you did very methodically? Did you follow like a self-improvement program, or was it just like, oh my gosh, life is crazy, we got to scale it back and really focus on what's important to us? Like, how'd you go from there? Because it's, you make it sound easy, which I know it was not, because I've been through it myself and a lot of investors have as well. Like, can you help people who are coming up on that similar phase or kind of in that same step? Like, how can they go out there and be intentional about it and scale? Because a lot of people aren't able to. They get stuck, they hit a roadblock. Like, what tips would you give, or if you could like rewind to years ago, like what was some like the triggers that helped you out?
As I look back, I did not follow a program. I did not sign up for a course. What I did was I started to enlist an A team. I started to enlist who is the realtor going forward that's going to have my back and help me find these properties? Who's the CPA that I need to engage with? My financial planner at the time. We had made money and we had lost it. And then we made some more and then we lost again. Like, I have no chooser in me for stocks. And so we finally found a financial planner that I believed in that had us diversified. And I started talking to him about it. And he didn't understand real estate the way I wanted to. But he was willing to learn with me, right? So he's on this journey. My CPA is learning what I need.
That's really cool. Not many financial planners will.
No.
That's really cool.
I give his name out a ton. He's a fantastic, fantastic guy. And he's young and excited and now invested himself. So I think it was that. I think it was, I don't know that you need a method. there's 100 ways to invest in real estate and 100 ways to do each one of those. I don't think that there's one way to success. I think that once you pick a way and you stay consistent and you believe in it, then I think you'll find and you'll start to attract the people around you that will lean in and that need you to lean into them. And then all of a sudden you start creating a tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And with that tribe, it was, who could I count on? And a lot of it was that real estate lender relationship, me being my own lender, of course. But I can't do my own deals. Right. Legally, I can't do my own deals. So now I've got to lean on who's my person that I'm going to. And now I can't even get Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac deals. So now I'm like, who's my portfolio person? I've got to lean. That's a new one. So that's my newest addition to my A team. I think that has been the biggest win for me. And then they're bringing better. And then I would say the second thing, in addition to the A team, is the goals. So a lot of people talk about the method. I will tell you, I don't care about cap rate. I don't look at the net income. I get that investors will probably throw tomatoes at me for that, saying that, but I don't look at those things. I look at what is my goal set. So I'm constantly focused on, and Peter and I talk about it, my husband and I talk about it all the time. Where are we on our goal? Like, or how are we tracking? So if I'm 53 today, I started when I was 40 and bought my first one. And if I'm looking at this, if I want to be done at 62 to some degree, I'm kind of a workaholic and my team will tell you that. And I'm sure I'll be involved in some level, but I want my rental income to do a very good job of offsetting my current income, which is not easy to do. So we're even under contract right now for another fourplex and another single family because we have this goal set. So if that's my goal, how much money do I want? What is that age at retirement? How old am I today? How much money do I have to invest in properties today? And then of the assets that I have the opportunity to buy, how much will those opportunities net income at that time?
I'm really curious how you said, since you don't really look at too many metrics. So you're in a contract, you said a fourplex right now? Yes. So how did you evaluate and why that fourplex? Was it location? Wasn't cap rate? It doesn't sound like.
It's not cap rate.
Is it like A class, B class, C class? Like what's the stuff that's important? Because obviously you have your buy box.
I do.
Right? Like
I do.
What's your buy box and how do you evaluate a deal?
So my buy box is typically C grade, fourplexes side by side with a backyard because Coloradoans love their dogs. I like it North Denver. So Denver up to Lafayette over to Fort Collins. So it's a pretty big triangle. This particular fourplex and single family was the same seller in Kansas City. So we have purchased into a couple of commercial properties in Kansas City at this point. So we've gotten more familiar and more comfortable with Kansas City. Having said that, I just bought all three of my kids their first properties in Denver, and now we're looking for another property in Denver for my oldest son. So I'm still buying in Denver, but I'm looking at, okay, so as my husband and I put our plan together and we have these properties that are all based on amortizations of when I want to retire. So my biggest thing is it a fourplex, which I like the multiple doors, offsets risk, the whole thing, cash flow. Is it a fourplex? Is it side by side? Does everybody have a piece of grass? And does it pay off with the current market rents on an amortization that gives me the cash flow that has a big enough hit to my income, net income that I want to make at that age to make it worth it?
So do you just, is as simple as like, hey, you want to retire in 15 years and you just say, hey, I'm going to do a 15-year loan or kind of go back and pay extra so it's paid off around the 15-year mark? Is that your strategy?
It's close, yes. Okay. So we put everything on a 30-year fixed. Because things like COVID happen and you can't plan for that. And so all of our properties are being paid off on a 20-year AM, a 15-year AM, a 10-year AM based on what they are, based on our timeline and when we bought them. But all of them got paid like a 30-year fixed for 3 months, for March, April, May, right? Because we didn't know what was happening. Oh, yeah. So as we're waiting it out, not really even March we paid normal because it didn't have until after. So April, May, and June. And then by then we were right back into it.
Can I ask you a random question here? Because I know you do a ton of loans.
Yes.
I've always have people ask me, do a 30 or 15, or we go through that. I cannot think of one client who's ever bought a property on a 15-year mortgage for an investment property. For the reasons you said, people put on a 30-year because the interest rate's such a small difference and it gives you an extra, he can pay extra, but he can never pay less.
Right.
Do many of your clients actually buy properties on 15-year AMs?
No, because I'm talking to them.
Okay.
No. But when you get to portfolio and commercial, now you have to do shorter AMs, right? So no, 98% of our loans run 30
Okay.
days. Even if somebody wants a primary home, they want to pay it off. I'll tell you all day long, your primary home's your worst investment. Take that cash, go do something else with it. I can go on and on. But so as we looked at our timeline, so we have our 401ks, which I had mentioned. My chooser's not really that spot on, yet we still have it. So we're going to spend our 401ks in our 60s, and we're just going to spend it out. That whole idea of 4%, we're not going to do it. We have a whole life policy. We're going to reinvest that money, cash it out. And then we have our rentals that they're going to start cash flowing 100% outside of escrows. They're going to start cash flowing at 62. And then the last one gets paid off at 65. These last two that we're buying right now will start paying off at age 70. Because my husband and I had a very frank conversation, and I don't want to get morbid here, but his parents are not alive, and my mom and dad are kicking. In fact, they're obnoxiously alive. So, and I say that in the most lovingly way. They're healthy and they're upbeat, and I'm looking at them going, I'm going to live a long time, and I don't want to live without my husband, which is really what gets me.
Yeah.
And so, but we're planning for that. So what's the money that we need while he's alive? What am I guessing that I'm going to need to take care of him? What am I going to need beyond that? And I have to think real, and we have to be able to be honest with each other as we go through that. So we have a very specific plan from 60 years old to 100 years old, and how are we going to delegate the cash flow? And the properties drop into that.
I love it. I've never heard of something that really stuck out to me is how you're like in your 60s, you're really going to like just basically like draw down your 401k to zero, not do the safe withdrawal rate of 4% a year. So the plan is to to spend the 401k in your 60s, and then as the rentals pay off, just live off of that, and then you'll have some other income coming in from, sounds like life insurance policies and things like that. But go through 401k, I guess, spend it before you hit your required minimum distributions at 70.5,
right,
and go off the rentals. That's so I've never heard anyone do that. So unique.
We're just thinking in buckets. My mind works in buckets. And so we're just managing our retirement. And so each rental that we buy fits into a bucket. And then there's the kid bucket, right? There's some of these rental properties I'll sell specifically at a time where I'm planning on selling it for that cash flow. So that $330,000 fourplex in Nevada is now worth 1.1. By the time we retire, it'll be worth 1.8, 2, who knows, right? And so that little property is going to drop in at a very specific time and infuse cash. And yes, I have to pay capital gains. I get all those things. But there's some properties that we're going to 1031 exchange. There's some properties we're going to gift to our kids because we have a trust set up, and they'll get them with the step up in value. And there's a few that we're going to take, and we're going to take the hit to put that cash back in our pocket. But it's intentional. Yeah.
But you have everything planned out. Like you said, you've got some you're going to pass on, some you'll sell in 1031 and continue to trade up, and some you just say, take the money off the table. So something I want to look back to, because you said you really focus on C-grade properties or C-grade fourplexes. Now, obviously, you've been through a few market cycles. You've seen the good, bad, ugly of real estate. Why C-grade properties? Because people either really love them or really don't like them. There's usually very few people that are, middle of the road to like a C-grade property. It's either like it a lot or don't like it a lot. Why do you like it?
I like it because 2 adults making minimum wage can afford my rent. And Walmart is always hiring.
Mm-hmm.
There was a month when I didn't believe that during COVID. And then they came out, and Walmart and Amazon went on a tear in hiring. So those kinds of jobs, although be it during transitional pandemics, you have moments where you're wondering if they're going to be able to pay the rent. And I get that there was a lot of people that didn't have their rent paid, but a C grade allows people to step down if they need to in rent. I don't want to ever have a high, an A-class rental property that I need a $4,000 or $5,000 a month rent to make the numbers work.
Now, have you noticed that, I've heard about, hey, people can step down, but I've heard other investors say in the 2008, if it's a C-class property, you end up filling with D-class tenants or F-class tenants. Did you notice a similar pattern with your properties over the years?
So we didn't have them in 2008,
okay,
right? So when we had our properties, and I respect that a lot of people went through a lot of trying times in 2008. So we purchased our first property 13 years ago, so just shortly thereafter. But our properties during COVID, which is the best show for that, we immediately went in and addressed each tenant as a valuable member of our tribe, if you will, right? I mean, we're all in this together. My job is to make this as livable as possible because we're all trapped in our homes. It's the middle of a pandemic. What do you need? Now, we've been maintaining, I always believe in maintaining a safe place to live, a clean, safe place to live. So we've been maintaining it, but do you need something else? Do you need new carpets? Do you need a fresh appliance? Do you need something that's going to make that stay? And then do you need help? And we gathered all the help that was available in Denver and in Colorado, and we provided that to them. So we humanized the experience. We only had one tenant that went on a payment plan. Everybody else paid.
Wow. That's really impressive for that size of portfolio.
Yes.
So I want to totally change topics here because I get this question a lot when we do events or we do podcasts, and comes to a lot of like aspiring female investors and aspiring females looking into like the investment community from a professional status. So they say, hey, we want get more women speaking and presenting. So you're obviously like, a poster child for that, just with your success, your portfolio. So 2 questions here is like, any tips to women that say, wow, I want to go where Nicole and her husband Peter went? And secondly, I know you do a ton of events around town. I want to make sure you mention that so people can get plugged in with you more. So
Absolutely.
Our first question, how can other women investors, other women professionals follow in your footsteps?
It's very easy to, and I say this in the most sincere way, it's very easy for a woman to step down in the shadow of a strong male. My husband is extremely loving and caring. He's more of a servant's heart.
Okay.
So he's going to, in fact, shine the light back on me. But I've seen women who had a story but didn't feel comfortable telling it. I think as a woman, you just have to find your voice. And there's some story buried in my mom and what we experienced. My mom is an incredibly strong Greek New Yorker. There is a lot about my mom that I love. But she raised my brother and I in a way that she had to, based on being a single mom. And there was no story there for me. Like that wasn't a story. It was my life. And I didn't think of it as a story until I got older and started realizing that people need to be able to relate to me and not, I don't want to say follow me because that's the wrong word, but they need to be able to see where I'm going if they want these same things or want to learn the experience that I've had. So I would say as a woman, find your story. Find the thing that you can stand up on a pedestal and talk about. What is it that you bring to the table in a way of your passion, your empathy, your expression, your artistry, your financial wizardry, whatever that is about you, and be loud about it. So often we are quiet about it, about our strengths. We don't want to be too strong. I think we need to be strong. And you have to be willing to not be liked all the time. Like I have 3 amazing kids, but their teachers didn't know me because I was working. My oldest son, to this day, he laughs about the fact that he had to bring in a picture of me to say that, no, my mom actually exists. This is her, right? And I don't say that because I'm proud of it. I say that because it's just who I was. I worked, I loved my job, I loved serving others, and ultimately I loved my children. My children come to me today as an entrepreneur and as a leader. They ask me questions about their career and their jobs and taking that next step. They went to their father when they needed doctor's appointments and care and they forgot their lunches, right? So and that's okay. And he was the most brilliant parent. He was 5 times the parent I ever could have been. And that you have to be okay with the fact that you're not the perfect ideal for whatever you think a woman should be.
That's great advice there. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I know you are a content producer. You are a teacher at heart. You like to educate. I know you produce a lot of content on Facebook Lives, blog posts. You hold a lot of events. Can you give us a rundown for like how people can just, get plugged into some of your content and kind of get plugged into your sphere?
Absolutely. So theruethteam.com is our website, and it's RUETH. And so that has a lot of our classes and events. So we have the same consistent schedule. So every Tuesday morning, we do a Facebook and Instagram live at 8 a.m. Every Wednesday, we send out a content video. This Wednesday happens to be a video of my first fourplex that I ever owned. You want to see a C-grade
Did you go do a video walkthrough?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, cool.
We
Definitely. I want to see that.
Coming out on Wednesday. Every Thursday, Megan Aller and I, entitled, we come together and we do a market update, primarily for real estate agents, but we have clients that listen to that because that's live on Facebook as well. And then Saturday morning, I write a blog for whatever's going on that week economically, what's changing the psyche of a buyer or seller's mind on whether or not to buy or to invest. And I still write those blogs. I know, as crazy as that sounds. So those are all the things. And then once a month, we do a class on the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 p.m. in our office, live on building investment empire. What was that first step I took? What do you need to think about as a loan, as a model? My husband and I created a spreadsheet so you can track the goals for your properties. It's the gold box. And then we have our big event for real estate agents. It's called The Next Big Thing. We premiered this February in 2022 with Ryan Serhant, and then we're already planning for next February. So it's going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah, after you told me Serhant went to your first one, I am jealous I missed that. So I'll be the next one. I think that's super cool. All right, so I want to make sure we got this right. So if people go to theruethteam.com, and that's RUETH,
yes,
they can find all the stuff you talked about on there,
yes.
Right? Awesome. And they can find the content, connect with you also from like a lender stamp capacity as well, just everything. That's the source to go to?
Yes. We have a lot of loan program options, especially for investors. We do all the non-QM and the DSCRs. And we also,
you have those products as well?
We do.
Is that through Fairway or is that a different?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, it's through our broker channel through Fairway.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we are also on TikTok and YouTube. So we put out a lot of YouTube content.
All right. Well, wrapping up right now, we're recording this end of August. Market has been crazy, to say the least, last 5 months. I think reality is starting to check in. People are going back to school. What general tips do you have for investors and just in general and just real estate people in general right now at this time in the market?
There is... I'd hate to say there's never been a better time, but in the last 3 years, there's never been a better time for a buyer than right now. Yeah. They have to understand that I get the fact that purchase prices are up. I get the fact that interest rates are up. And I even get the fact that instability feels real. But beyond that, if you're in a job that you feel is stable, if you have the cash flow that you believe you can invest, right now, the buyer demand is down. Supply is also slightly down and will continue to drop through the rest of the year. So as we get into the next year, if we hit 2023 and we have a recession, interest rates will drop, inventory will be low. There will be a run up in purchase prices again as buyers come out of the woodwork, not enough sellers, and now all of a sudden you're paying $50,000 over asking again. But right now, that's not happening. Right now, you might be the only offer or one of very few. And you can get it for under, I was just talking to somebody this morning and they had a listing that they were asking and they had 9 offers, but all 30,000 under asking.
Wow, that's so rare.
It is. And that's the opportunities right now. So if you stage it right and price it right, there will be multiple bids and it will go for over asking. But if you don't, as a seller, there are going to be buyers that are looking for opportunities, and getting in today and allowing yourself to refinance later or take advantage of the opportunity, allowing that run up in purchase prices, not be against you when you're trying to buy, but be for you when you own. Yeah. That's the position you want to be in.
I love it. Nicole, thank you so much. I'm impressed with your story, your background, all the tips you have. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Listener, viewers out there, make sure you plug into theruethteam.com. Tons of content, tons of resources there. And Nicole, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Chris.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Absolutely.